welcome to Dirty D's Gaming. Today we're going to talk about Pax Day and their new posts and announcements about Verse 4. So I have it up on the screen here, what they posted today. And it looks pretty juicy. They're talking about how they have a divine mechanics, PvP, knighthoods. It's going to be a multi-flow system. Very interesting. Castle building. So it looks like a whole system of knights, castle building, drama and faction, allying up. So we scroll down, check it out. Phase 1, Verse 4. So they're talking about here about how Lyonesse is a 10 by 10, very huge with 5 zones, which is very nice. We don't want it too small. We want it big enough where you can sneak in and sneak out, which is an excellent idea. What it sounds like, there's going to be 4 Petra days in it, which is good for protection, where you can store and craft, and multiple ways to enter, which will help with we call it gatekeeping from larger guilds and alliances, which would be very nice because, as you know, other games like Dune, where there's only one way in, one way out, there's a lot of gatekeeping in the PvP area of Dune, which definitely this is a good sign that they're taking notes and not repeating other games' mistakes, which is I'm very happy for, because when they first discussed about how they were going to talk about it and how they wanted to do PvP, I was kind of worried because, let's be realistic, we just had Dune come out, and if you I don't know if you haven't played or not, if you have, you'll understand this, that the deep desert, which is the PvP area, is very gated. Big clans, hackers dominate the entrance zone pretty much for the PvP part, because there's only one way in, one way out. It makes it harder to sneak by, and plus the resources are researched in advance through people scouting it out and pointing it out, so they know where everything is, and they know where to wait for people. So it gets very chaotic, especially in Dune's case. To get tier 6, you have to go in the PvP area. So they almost have the same mechanics. If you look down here, when I scroll down, talking about 2 new resources to give you enchanting your gear. But so it's mimicking Dune with the the resource situation, but at the same time, there's multiple ways to get in. So I don't think it's going to be an issue, and there's safe zones and places where you can store stuff. So you could potentially store the stuff away and then leave and then get killed, which is a good and bad thing, because it's a cheap way to beat the system. If you can get to a safe area and drop all the resources, then no one has a chance to kill you and get those resources. So, but it looks like, scroll down after the phase 1 part, they show the resources, what they're going to look like, how they're going to work, what crafts. So it's going to be alchemy and jewelry crafting, which is very excellent news, because right now alchemy has some use with the potions, but jewelry craft is just useless for role playing only. So, and then you scroll down again, they're talking about phase 2, about the Heartlands, and how they're going to wipe Lyonesse every 6 months, which is nice, because then it won't get stale. Now, other clans will have a chance to claim certain areas where they might not be able to do, because bigger clans grab them first, but then if those bigger clans fall apart, they still own the property, and there's no way of the land to exchange hands. But with this wipe every 6 months, it gives a chance for new clans to claim an area before another clan can, or old clans that quit and they're not playing anymore, they lose their land because it's of the wipe. Also see they said they're going to have limited capture spots, which is interesting way of doing it. and they talk about how it's going to, having these land will give you huge benefits for storage and crafting for your clan, which makes sense. It's kind of like when they in verse 1 had that PvP in Lyonesse where you could build and all that stuff. So hopefully we'll get like a better version of that, because like it was nice you were able to build the in verse 1 out there for a little bit, but there was no way to lock your doors or make it secure enough. So like what we had to do is we had to have like a door, and then behind that a wall, like the 3 skinny walls, and we would blow out the center one and run in, and then quickly rebuild it so no one can get in. So hopefully they get the door mechanisms figured out, so we can actually lock our doors so only clan members can open them up. We'll make it a lot better. But my biggest issue with that is I like that idea, how they're going to do that, but you know what, we can build these castles and all that stuff, but where's our gatehouses? Where's my portcullis? Where's my drawbridge? All that stuff. Like, they want to have that whole knight, lord, king vibe and castle building vibe, but like the gatehouse, like the essential piece of a castle, they don't have. Hopefully with these updates they'll add them in some form, because like not having a gatehouse or drawbridge or just a simple 2x2 gate or doorway with for your castle, it's just gonna look awful. I think personally awful. So hopefully they'll get on that. So it also talks about they're going to change the rule set, which is nice for death and property, because right now the rule set is the same across the board no matter where you're at, which I think in the Heartlands you shouldn't have to do a corpse run. Like, there's no need to do it. Like, you should just have all your stuff. Maybe make a mechanic that if you go back to where you died and you click your shiny thing, you get an experience bonus or something to make it so people go back there. But at the same time, like, it's the Heartlands, like it's the safe area. You shouldn't have to do a corpse run. Like, maybe in dungeons keep it the same where you still have to get your corpses, because that's the risk of doing a dungeon, potentially losing your stuff. You don't want to make it like where there's no risk in a dungeon, then people are just surging through trying to get as deep as they can to get the bosses, kill the bosses, die, and then get a free ticket out. So they're going to have to be very careful with that, because that's like a double-edged sword. You don't want to make it too nice, but at the same time you don't want to make it like too hard. So hopefully they realize that's only maybe out in the open in the Wildlands, and in the Heartlands you keep yourself. But if you do dungeons or you go out in Lyonesse, you have to do a corpse run. And they kind of mentioned that. And they're talking about some items being destroyed and depth damage to any gear with health, which is interesting. Hopefully it's just gear that's equipped, and like hopefully it's not gear in the inventory, because that's like one of my biggest issues with other games. When I die, is like I'll be getting gear on a dungeon run in, like, for example, Dune, and I'll get parts for like my onocopter, or parts for something, or just gear in general, and then I die, and then the gear that's in my inventory that I'm not using, and the items for like building vehicles are in my inventory, they take damage, and it's so annoying, because like just like this game, there's a a lifetime on those items, so the more you damage it, the less you can use it. So hopefully they'll have a good balance. And then they're talking about after phase 2, the feudal houses. Now this part is really interesting. So a clan leader will become a knight and swear fealty, and then everyone can join underneath him. And then knights can swear fealty to each other, thus forming a larger alliance. So this is where the RP and the like Game of Thrones vibes really get thick, which is nice. I like how they're making it so you can do alliances. So, in PvP, it'll flag people as like your allies, so it's not like a giant free for all. Now, granted, you might not be able to see them; you can only see your group, which hopefully they keep that way, just like Dune did. But it'd be nice to know that, okay, that person's an enemy, this person's not. I don't have to worry about hitting this person. But I still feel like there should be like in Dune, like, or even Conan Exiles, where there's like you don't do max damage, but you should do like 10% damage if you accidentally hit one of your allies. So, but hopefully, like, we'll see. Maybe they'll add more to that. It probably, I doubt they'll be able to do it right out there, but hopefully with the proper feedback from the market towns. And when they talk about this, they said market towns will change the area around the Patriot Days in Lyonesse. The areas will stay as safe harbors inside Lyonesse. The feature plots will allow building, and pretty much the way you get these plots, unlike the rest of the PvP areas, instead of fighting for them with, you know, might your might of your army, these plots you have to use gold, which is nice, and bidding too. It's not even like so it gives you it gives a chance to burn gold in a healthy way, because a lot of people are just hoarding all their money, not spending it, and there's no use. Like right now, the grace system isn't really fleshed out, so there's no use. There's no reason to buy grace with gold, right? I mean, some people probably are, but not everybody. But it's a good way to make sure people use these areas as trade hubs. You know what I'm saying? To make it so it's a live town, not just like, because you look at other games where they have like towns where you go get quests and buy and sell stuff. It's very stagnant, as in like the town's built, it's always going to look the same unless there's some kind of event that changes it. Where the market towns will constantly grow depending on who wins the land and builds on it and what they build, and what if there's an upkeep and someone doesn't pay their upkeep, so they lose the plot, so someone else buys it. So the city will always, or town will always grow and evolve and not be stagnant, which is a great thing. The next thing they talk about is parishes. So it talks about how you can form alliance through them, and priests will be able to collect large amounts of grace. So it's almost like parishes is like the Pope system in the Catholic Church. It looks like looks like they'll be able to cast very new expensive miracles. So hopefully these miracles, like when I read this, I think hopefully it's like Vanguard Saga of Heroes, where they had um, diplomacy. I don't know if you played that, you know what I'm talking about. But diplomacy was a very cool thing. So the way diplomacy worked was you played a game, and if you did the diplomacy in certain areas, it would unlock buffs for your faction, right? So hopefully the miracles will be the same way, where the priests will cast their miracles, spend a whole bunch of grace, but the whole alliance gets plus 200 hit points. You know what I'm saying? So it would be a reason to donate. Like if I donate my grace, I know that my knights and my knighthood will get a bonus in PvP, which will be nice. So it looks like they're really trying to balance this out between melee and, in essence, miracles, magic through miracles, which will be like their buff system, almost like even like say like in World of Warcraft when you would mount the head at the front of the city, and everyone would get the buff from her from that event. So it's it's nice where they try. You may not be a great warrior, but man, you could really talk to people and get people behind you and be like the voice of reason and the rally cry. Well, you can be a priest and you can work that angle, and that's how you get the grace, because you're really good at talking to people and convincing people to help your cause or help your kingdom or knighthood or alliance's cause. So this is a really good plus, I think. So they're also talking about after that, getting ready for the new PvP era. So this is gonna be interesting how they word that. And they talk about how It's going to be a lot of work and a lot of adjustments. Listen, we all know. I mean, every game is not perfect. They'll put something out, and then there'll be issues. We just have to be patient. They're not trying to piss us off. They're trying to really flesh out this game. Like people get upset. Oh well, they changed the world twice already. They didn't need to do that. It was fine the last time. You don't know that. Like, what if? I mean, look at Conan. Conan is a prime example. They built Conan Exiles. They built that game as a one and done. I don't know if a lot of people know that. The game was originally supposed to be a one and done, but it was so popular at release. You know, investors are like, no, we're do something with this, add to it. So they added more and more and more and more and more stuff, and their foundation of the game was crap, right? So what happened was more and more bugs crept up. It was crap because they were adding stuff to the game. As if they would have left the game alone the way it was in its vanilla form, it was fine. It did the coding did its purpose, but because they kept adding more and more stuff to it, all these bugs creeped up, and now they're in the age of fixes because of this. So I rather them redo things 3 or 4 times to make sure it's solid and bug free and working properly and interacts perfectly with everything else than them saying, "Oh, we'll just fix this later," because that's just going to cause more issues. So it looks like they they paid attention to all the other games out there and their systems, and they kind of like made their own little melting pot because the prime example, Dune, like it's scary. Like right now, there's only, like I said, there's only one way in, one way out. Um, it's more like if you have the numbers, you'll win. There's no escaping people, and now even more so, like where they made the map smaller for PvP, but and making it, yeah, it's nice. They made a nice PvE area for the PvEers, cool, so they can go get their resources that they want. But all the people that were risking it and sneaking it in, they get screwed over because now there's a smaller area to sneak in and sneak out and do it, ratting it. You know what I'm saying? Now it's easy to find them. It's easy to kill them. So it's a mess, like a giant mess. And then also, I mean, look, they're pushing content in Dune, and they don't have a good solid ground because they didn't redo things, they didn't fix things a million times over, or redo things a million times over, like Pax is doing. So that's the biggest thing. Like people don't get, like, yes, it's early access. There's going to be issues, but this whole early access thing kind of like spoils it for everyone because you don't know, like other games that came out before this whole early access fad, we're going to call it, or era of early access. You don't know how many times they redid something. Hell, they could have redone a zone 20 times back in the day, and you would never know because they didn't have early access, right? So like, and then people make judgments and rate the games off of what they're doing in early access. Now, granted, if they don't fix anything and they release the game in full launch and then it has all these issues, still fine, yeah, give them a bad rating. But don't give them a bad rating, right? Because they don't have this, they don't have that, or they're not listening to us, or they keep fixing the same thing over and over again that I don't think needs to be fixed. You don't know if it needs to fix. You're not the coder. So you just let them work their magic, give them feedback, but it has to be constructive feedback, not just, I don't like this. I paid $100 for this game and now I can't. You just ruined the game. Like, no, no, you don't know if they're ruining the game until it launches. Like, so hopefully this gets everyone all happy. Listen, there's always going to be the naysayers and be like, I don't want a PvP. But I mean, they clearly state in these posts that there are safe spots. Granted, you probably can't get to those safe spots off the bat, but the way it sounds like how you can travel around the map, you can travel to the Patron Days. So, and when you zone into the PvP area, there's going to be a safe spot right to zone in. So hopefully that means technically you never have to step foot in PvP if you want to get to the trade towns. Who knows? Maybe not. Maybe you do. But I mean, they say they're around the Patron Days, and they also say that you'll be able to travel to the Patron Days. So hopefully that means if you don't want to touch PvP at all, you'll be in the PvP zone, but as long as you stay in the safe zone, you'll be fine. But only time will tell until it releases. Now, the only thing I'm a little disappointed in is unless I missed it, I don't think I did. They did not give a release date when they're going to do this. Let's see. I don't think they did. Let's see. Here it is. No, I don't see it. But like, at least they're telling us the plan, or at least the plan that they have. It doesn't look like when it's going to be released. Probably soon. I mean, they said what I think the way it was stated, it would be sometime in September, based off of when they said when it was going to be released. Just like they didn't get an exact date of launch, but they said it was like during the winter time. So that could be all the way up, beginning of winter or end of winter, whatever it was, I think it was beginning of winter. That could be all the way up to December. So hopefully, I have high hopes for this. Um, I like the game as is. I think the only thing they need to throw in there, just make it more kosher, I guess, is bosses. Put the bosses. I mean, there are bosses, but make them a little bit more challenging. Maybe throw some world bosses in there to keep like large groups happy. But like a lot of people forget, like yes, we've been spoiled as for MMOs and sandboxes. Like a lot of people have been spoiled, and I think this is like the final thing I really have to say is like people are spoiled. Like when EverQuest 1 came out and WoW, yeah, WoW had a lot of stuff, but vanilla WoW was pretty plain. Now the difference between say WoW and other games, like they pumped content out. They were very quick. So it started out very bland, but they added so quickly to it. Even EverQuest, like it was rough in EverQuest. Like there was a lot of issues at launch and all that stuff. Queues to even get in and all that stuff. Um, a lot of issues. But like if you look at both EverQuest and WoW, there's just as much content that PAX has. It's just in different ways. Like you can't build in WoW, you can't build in EverQuest. You can't build a massive castle that looks really cool. You can't, the crafting is more defined than both games. Like I don't. Last time I played WoW, like you didn't even use crafted gear. You always got like quest armor gear or set gears. You didn't make it. I mean, there were a few set armors that certain classes you made, but like the market wasn't as reliable. And if in EverQuest, like crafting is which is to help you get by as a new person. Nothing really like when there's really nothing around. But like it wasn't like great armor like we have in packs and stuff like that. So I just think people need to everyone should have high hopes for the game, but like it should do this and that. It should wow us, blah 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 blah. But at the same time, they have a lot of stuff. You just gotta give them some time. Well, thanks you for listening to another episode of Dirty D Gaming.